Good family history means having good documentation, and good documentation requires source citations. However, having source citations does not guarantee that a conclusion is correct. Citations matter, but they're not enough on their own. What actually makes family history accurate is building a body of evidence that supports your conclusions. But how do you know whether you have sufficient evidence? And how do you record it? This is where my tree health assessment tool comes in. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Trek. I'm the author of The Good Genealogist and the creator of the Generations Genealogy blog. I teach genealogical research methods for the Society of Australian Genealogists. About 5 years ago, I decided that I needed to teach my students a method for answering these very questions about evidence. Years earlier, when I was working as a policy advisor for the government, we used a traffic light assessment system to evaluate and communicate whether certain criteria had been met. I realised that the same simple approach could be adapted to genealogical evidence. The Tree Health Assessment tool helps you build a healthy family tree by working systematically through your conclusions, evaluating the strength of the evidence, supporting each one, and documenting your assessment as you go. A healthy family tree is an accurate family tree. It's built on conclusions that are supported by sufficient genealogical evidence and a solid foundation. How do you know whether your family tree is accurate? Every relationship in your family tree is a conclusion you have reached based on evidence. The Tree Health Assessment tool helps you evaluate the strength of genealogical evidence supporting each conclusion and identify where further research is needed. It helps you check whether the relationships and the information are correct. What do I mean by tree health? When I talk about the health of a family tree, I'm talking about the strength of evidence supporting it. Every family tree needs a solid foundation. If just one relationship in the first few generations is incorrect, that mistake can flow through to every generation beyond it. You may spend years researching people who aren't actually part of your family. This is why we need to spend more effort checking our foundations. We want something like the building on the right, not the building on the left. As you apply the Tree Health Assessment tool, you identify where your tree is healthy. These points are solid foundation points. Each one becomes a place you can confidently build from. The Tree Health Assessment tool does not evaluate the evidence for you. Instead, it provides a structured way to work systematically through your family tree, prompting you to evaluate the evidence for each conclusion and record your assessment. The three colours indicate the strength of the evidence. Green means the evidence is strong, yellow means you need better evidence, and red means you have no evidence. The colours are not simply labels. They encourage you to stop, evaluate the evidence supporting each conclusion, and decide whether it is strong enough. I'll give you some examples from my own family tree, which demonstrate how you evaluate the evidence to determine whether to mark a person and relationship as green, yellow, or red. But before I do that, here are some tips for the assessment based on the nature of the evidence. We categorise evidence in family history as direct evidence, indirect evidence, or negative evidence. Direct evidence comes from a source that explicitly provides information that can be used as evidence. For example, a birth certificate states the date of birth, which is evidence for the date a child was born. Indirect evidence is provided where information implies but does not directly state a conclusion. For example, a death certificate that states the age at death provides indirect evidence of the date of birth. Negative evidence allows a conclusion to be drawn from the absence of a situation that should exist given the circumstances. For example, if your grandparents are your biological grandparents, then you'd expect to have DNA matches with your first cousins. If you do not, this negative evidence suggests that either they're not your biological grandparents or your cousins are not your biological cousins. When you evaluate evidence using a tree health assessment tool, the type of evidence affects the result. Direct evidence is more likely to result in a green assessment if it comes from multiple independent sources. If you only have indirect or negative evidence, that result would be either a yellow or red assessment. If you have confirmed the identity and relationship of an individual using DNA evidence, then the assessment will be green, provided your confirmation process is accurate. This is because the combination of documentary and DNA evidence is stronger than either documentary or DNA evidence on their own. Some quick examples so that you can start on your own tree health assessment. The colours are used to indicate the strength of the evidence and the level of confidence that you have in a conclusion. In this example, we're looking at the mother, Anne Cook, of Emma Cook. We have one single source that provides direct documentary evidence that Anne is the mother of Emma, but it's not been confirmed by DNA or other sources. So the evidence is there, but it's insufficient. So I would judge that to be yellow. In this example, where we're looking at the father of Ida, we have no direct evidence, but we do have strong DNA evidence and indirect evidence in that her twin was raised by one of his sisters. So in this case, I rated it as green because of the DNA evidence, whereas the Seaborn Cook example is yellow because it had no DNA evidence. The tree health assessment tool is useful in many different stages of research, from planning to documentation, when you're reviewing your goals, when you're scoping the information that you have, when you're identifying tasks, when you're planning your research, and when you're reviewing your research. If you'd like to learn more about the tree health assessment tool, there's a link in the description to my website where you will find articles. Learn how to conduct a tree health assessment on your family history and make your family history more accurate.